Alright, I'm back. I want to make another video. I've wanted to make a video for a little while about masculinity, and in particular, toxic masculinity. About a year ago, give or take, I posted a video because Gillette released an ad talking about toxic masculinity, and I thought it was a good commercial. A lot of people didn't like it. There was a lot of hate. People said it was virtue signaling and toxic masculinity doesn't exist and it was a horrible idea to put men down and blah, blah, blah. I thought that was just a load of crap. I liked the ad, like I said. But in the course of the past year, I've seen things pop up like toxic masculinity doesn't exist, however, toxic femininity does. I've seen people say toxic masculinity doesn't exist at all. Anytime anything bad happens, it's just a weak man. Today, I saw on the internet an article about a man who was at the barbershop and he was getting his hair cut with an axe. The barber was using an axe. And the article said that was the true definition of toxic masculinity. Well, I'm here to weigh in on all these topics because, first of all, I believe toxic masculinity does exist. I also believe that toxic femininity exists. I think it's ridiculous to say that it doesn't exist, and I think it's absolutely ridiculous to try to define getting your hair cut with an axe at a barbershop as being toxic masculinity. That's ridiculous. So let's discuss masculinity first. What is it? If you look it up in the dictionary, masculinity is defined as traits that are typically considered male characteristics. Okay, that's really vague. And because society changes all the time, that definition does not even work. It's ridiculous. But it continues on. It says that masculinity is traits that are typically considered male traits. And it says an example of those would be aggressiveness or strength. All right. I'm not entirely confident that masculinity is a bad thing, but I'm fairly confident that aggressiveness can be considered a bad thing. But I'm not going to worry about that right now either. That is the definition in the dictionary when I Google it. Now, I have a tendency to think that definitions sometimes aren't right, and this one, I absolutely agree, is not right. It's a pointless definition. So I turned to Tracy, and if anybody knows who Tracy is, good for you. If you don't, well, you're missing out. But I turned to Tracy and I asked her, I said, you're a woman. What is masculinity to you? Because this definition is just retarded. And she gave me, which she quite often does, probably the best answer I could have heard. And her answer, I can't remember it word for word, so I'm just going to try to summarize what she said. Her answer went like this. Masculinity is a combination of so many different traits, but it's not any one of them individually. And it's not any one theory or concept. Masculinity is very much like a person's reputation, something that is built over time. And a person proves and develops their masculinity based on their actions. And for her, she was like, a person that is in a relationship proves that they are masculine by being there for their significant other or their family or whoever they're with over a course of time, because responsibility and support and being helpful are all masculine traits in some form or another. And she went on to say, strength, obviously can be considered masculine, but it doesn't necessarily have to be physical strength. It can just be strength of character. That's actually more important. You can look at somebody and can say, "Oh, wow, look at him. He's strong. He's got lots of muscles. He can lift 800 pounds or whatever." But even though that may be a masculine trait, when you compare it to someone who has proven their strength of character over time, that is much more masculine. And I thought that was really, really good and insightful. And I don't know how to put it into a simple definition, but I think Google and Webster's and anybody that runs a dictionary should call Tracy next time they have an issue and see if they can't make things just a little bit better. So now that we've pretty much decided what masculinity is, what is toxic masculinity, and does it really exist? All right, well, again, I think the definitions are being tossed around, and I think, as an example, this article I saw today talking about a man getting his hair cut with an axe being toxic masculinity is just ridiculous. So what is it? I think it's pretty basic. It's pretty simple. If you have a trait, if you have a characteristic that might be deemed as a masculine trait, for example, strength or aggressiveness or anything that somebody might consider masculine, but it's used in a negative way, if it's used to cause someone pain, if it's used in a malicious way, simply for self-gain and without concern for the other person's well-being, which, by the way, does not apply to self-defense, because self-defense is not malicious. Self-defense is preservation, and that's not malicious. But you have to be careful, because people can say, "Oh, well, I beat up my daughter's boyfriend because he cheated on her, and that's self-preservation, and that's self-defense because I'm helping her." And no. No. Can masculinity occur when you're in a fight? Of course it can. But is fighting necessarily a masculine trait that is positive? No, it's not. Because generally speaking, you shouldn't be fighting. Fighting is not a good thing. So you have to look at the trait and the action and put it together and decide if it's toxic. Does it hurt somebody? Does it hurt somebody simply for self-gain? Is there any benefit or reason that you should be doing this other than to cause someone else a problem? And if the answer is no, if the only reason you're doing it is to be a jerk, That's toxic. It's really simple. You can say, oh, it doesn't exist, that makes him a weak person. Okay, you have to just understand words change, definitions change, language is an evolving thing. Anybody that doesn't understand that needs to get a little bit more education, because language evolves, just like people should, though sometimes I swear we haven't evolved out of the caves yet. But language evolves, words evolve, and when someone uses a word, the point of language is to communicate with one another. So the whole point of words are to express something. And if you can get that across to someone else, that is the point of words and language and speaking. So to say a word doesn't exist doesn't make any sense if it's being used. You just have to understand what they mean. Even if you don't like the word, even if you don't want it around, if you can understand what they mean, that's what matters. So when a trait that would normally be considered masculine is used in a negative way for a negative purpose, it becomes toxic. That's really simple. It is straightforward. Is a guy getting his hair cut with an axe hurting someone? Is it bad? No. Is it like maybe stupid? Sure, you can think it's stupid, but he didn't hurt anybody. He didn't go out there and say, I'm going to cause somebody a problem for self-gain. No, that didn't occur. This is not toxic masculinity. It's stupidity, or it's just being fun and having a good time showing off, what you can do, or however you want to look at it. You can view it in whatever way you want, but it's not toxic. Now, people responded, because I guess this guy posted a video of himself getting this haircut. I think it was on Twitter, if I recall. And people responded and they were like, yeah, but why? Or some people said, well, what happens if you get your ear cut off? Okay, people do stuff that isn't necessarily smart all the time, but they do it anyway. Some people like it, some people don't. It's just human nature to do things. Sometimes they're going to be stupid. That doesn't make it toxic. If you don't like it, okay, fine, move on. He wasn't hurting anybody. And if anybody did get hurt, it was theoretically only going to be him. So it's not like he was being malicious. He was just doing something that he thought would be cool. Do I personally think it's cool or whatever? I don't know. I don't have anything against it. He was at a barber shop. It wasn't like he was trying to have some redneck that didn't know how to use an axe and the axe wasn't sharp trying to do this, and they wound up hurting each other and had to go to the hospital. This was somebody that theoretically was in a barber shop, knew what they were doing. Whatever, big deal. People do stupid stuff because they think it's cool and they like it. Big deal. But toxic masculinity, I do believe it exists. Just the same as toxic femininity, if you want to put that as a word, can exist, because anything that might be a feminine trait can be used in a negative way. And if it is, it becomes toxic. It's that simple. It's not rocket science. You just have to understand its language. You have to understand what people mean, and you have to stop using it wrong. And then we can all just understand each other. It's really simple. And I'm a big fan of simple. So anyway, I just wanted to post that. Don't know what anybody's going to think about it, but thanks for watching, and I hope you had a good day. Have a good day. Continue. continue to have good days. Don't be toxic. See you later.